Welcome to another edition of the Gruber Morning Show, sponsored by the Gruber Companies.
Charging while driving is here.
Are people getting bored with the boring company?
What's this about EV demand being gone?
And a Cybertruck at Gruber Motor Company? This and many more stories here this morning at our podcast. So one of the first things that we wanted to talk about was pretty exciting development, driving while charging. And there's that company in Israel, Electreon, that of course had been pioneering some of this, but apparently they've been collaborating with the state of Michigan, and who in 2021 pledged to complete a complete wireless charging road in conjunction with Electreon. And they released a press release last week that talked about the fact that this is not available to the public yet. It's in test mode, and they plan to begin extensive testing of this charging road early 2024 using a Ford E-Transit, which is equipped with its proprietary receiver. So remember, inductive charging is about loops in the road, which are emitting magnetic fields, very much like a transformer. And as these magnetic fields couple into another coil above the coil in the road, you get a transfer of energy. And it has to be AC voltage because you can't do that with DC. So the AC that is now collected by a vehicle driving over the road is rectified back to DC to charge the battery.
Right. And this particular charging, it has existed. We've talked about it in Sweden, I think it was, that it's being put in there. We've got Electreon working in Israel, now in Detroit, right?
Right, exactly. And according to the mayor of Detroit, now let's not forget that Detroit has faced some tough times over the last few decades.
Yes.
They used to be the motor capital of the world. In fact, the mayor points that out. So this is possible that with this kind of technology and them being the first, this may be a reemergence of the Detroit dominance. But what the mayor says, for more than a century, Detroit has been known around the world as a leader in transportation innovation. And this is Mayor Mike Dugan, by the way. He said, "We are the birthplace of the auto industry and the home of the first mile of concrete road and the first three-way traffic signal. Today, thanks to Governor Whitmer and our partner at Michigan Central Electreon, or at Michigan Central and Electreon, that's the Israeli company with the technology, we can add the nation's first wireless charging public roadway to that list of innovations." Now, the road is located in the former Book Depository building in the Michigan Central District on a quarter-mile stretch of Detroit's 14th Street. So it's not going to be very long to start with, but it'll be a good test bed, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And the tests will focus on the road's charging efficiency and will be used to evaluate EV charging road potential for long-term public transportation use. He said also, if this was easy, it would have already been done. But we're in competition across the world in electrification, and this will be our own proving ground in the city of Detroit. They add that the concept of wireless EV charging is expected to be particularly useful for vehicles in repetitive routes, such as buses, taxis, and freight vehicles, and they're also expected to be available to passenger vehicles in the future. And again, the wireless charging technology works through electromagnetic induction using embedded copper coils within the pavement and creating a magnetic field that the receiver then can garner energy from. Proximity is also going to be important. Of course, the closer you are to the closer you make the coils, the better the transfer of energy. So the lifted trucks aren't going to have a very easy time scavenging this type of energy from the roads.
Well, you know, the Cybertruck with its 17 inches of clearance is going to have a harder time than a Model S.
It'd be interesting to see if the future technology is to actually have a plate with a coil in it that lowers itself to the ground to capture that. And then, of course, camera sensors to see any obstruction so it doesn't rip it off the bottom of the car.
Sure.
I can see some engineering involved there. They say that the product was partially funded by a $1.9 million investment from the Michigan Department of Transportation, and it comes alongside an additional goal for the state to build a 40-mile connected corridor for EVs and self-driving vehicles.
I think this is when it looks like bang for the buck type of things, the use cases that they're talking about, public transportation, taxis, places that would go over the charging coil several times, does make a ton of sense. I love the idea of these guys using this as a proving ground, that they're going to prove out the concept, and then assuming that the concept gets proven, they'll go ahead and expand it.
One of the first things that popped to mind for me was the word toll roads.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to have to pay for the use of this electricity, and it's quite likely that we may see more toll roads if, here we've got a picture, and this is something Jesse asked ChatGPT-4 to create. Now, let me go on record here. What you're seeing here is an artist's conception. It is not real. There aren't people underneath the road, and there is not equipment like this underneath the road in a tunnel. This will basically be coils that are buried inside the asphalt or underneath the asphalt, and of course a station somewhere that is feeding these coils. But for graphic purposes, this is a great representation to get your head around what roads are going to look like underneath the asphalt in the future.
Yeah, definitely. That's man, good on ChatGPT, because that could even approximate the Detroit skyline with a bridge going across by one of the Great Lakes.
It did a good job putting the Israeli flag in there with the U.S. flag, but the spelling on the truck isn't quite right. I think we've got some characters there that are kind of out of place.
Yeah, I didn't get Electreon right.
Yeah. Although ChatGPT is much better at actually typing things accurately into images.
I like in the background you have a backhoe bucket that's floating in air.
Oh, you're right. Look
It's
at
above
that.
me in the background.
That must be a new technology that's
What about
also
the
coming.
UFO above it too?
Well, I thought that might be a VTOL, but
There you go.
yeah, we will have flying cars, and using the airspace definitely makes a lot of sense because it's wasted now, except for up higher where you have airplanes.
Right.
Very cool. We've got some comments coming in. Instagram, Sheriff's Chic H8506 says, hi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
YouTube, Marak Ben also greeting us.
Hello, with looks like we've got a TV, a camera, a checkbox, lots of things.
A thumbs up, yeah.
Give you a thumbs up.
And then Niels is chiming in from Denmark. He said, what is the efficiency of their wireless charging compared to wire? We didn't do a lot of research on this one, Niels, and sometimes we do, but this was just a quick article, a press release, and without any content or specs. He says, what about salt and frost? Oh my God, those roads get beat up pretty bad back east, don't they, with water getting into the cracks and,
Well, they do,
potholes.
and you're going to have salt, you're going to have frost, you're going to have, because Detroit will have lake effect snow, you're going to have a lot of snow and precipitation on the roads in the wintertime. And I think that it becomes a good test bed for all the different things that might happen.
And he said, won't this add weight to the complexity of the vehicle? Most likely, certainly,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you have a receiver now that, and it's not going to be a small coil. We need to transfer a lot of energy here in order to provide sufficient charge. And is it going to provide enough charge to compensate for the distance traveled, or is it just an augmentation? These are things we don't know yet.
Yeah, hopefully in an ideal situation, it's going to provide enough charge to augment the battery to the point that the battery itself can be lightened or be a little bit smaller, and that would offset, at least on a weight sense, the extra coil that's going to be needed under the car.
Sure. Yeah, so there's another question here as well. Let's get to that first. He says, first AC to DC and then back to AC for the motors. Seems highly inefficient, does it not? And a huge cost for building it. And of course, as technology continues to improve and photovoltaics continue to get more density, eventually something like this may not be necessary anymore.
Well, I'm wondering from an engineering standpoint, why not simply pump the AC directly into the motor since you're already traveling and let it be less load on the battery? That takes away the inefficiency of having to run it through the DC power plant and then back through.
Good point, yes. If you could parallel what's coming out of the inverter along with what's being fed by the coil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Aren't we already doing this? I mean, we have, like in Phoenix, we had the light rail.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the only thing that we're doing is we're just putting the wires and coils underground instead of having them up top powering the vehicle. And then we're making it mass produced to everybody, not just public transportation.
Sure. The difference there is there's a direct connection, like the Euro trains. You know, there's a bar that goes up to a wire that is perfectly level, and it's constantly making contact with that drawing AC power, or DC maybe. The subways in New York, I think, are DC. But in this case, it's through air. It's inductively coupled, and there's no direct connection.
YouTube, Clark Swartz also adds, would a garage floor charger be feasible?
Oh, very much so.
Oh, I think it would be totally.
I think that was the original intent of this, is to have, like your cell phone, is have a station that you can set it in without needing to plug in. And of course, the whole notion of plug-in charging is archaic and will eventually, completely go away. And
Sure. I between what we know already with solar and with inductive charging technology that exists already, it's going to go away sooner rather than later, I think.
Yep. All right. So the Boring Company, we talked about that briefly. It turns out that the Boring Company has completed a new tunnel in Las Vegas, and I think Mark pointed out this may be one of the only cities that really is aggressively pursuing the expansion of underground transport with the Boring Company.
It is, the new tunnel is really an exciting development for the Boring Company. It's nice to see them finish up that project. What I did is, as I was researching a little bit of background information, I have found out that most of the other tunnel projects have either been put on hold or have been outright canceled. The city of Las Vegas is right now the only major project that the Boring Company has going on. Granted, it's going to be, when it's all done, somewhere around 65 to 70 miles worth of tunnels. But that's kind of a put all your eggs in one basket type of situation for the Boring Company.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me that Vegas is probably a good place to use as a beta site, because other cities, have high groundwater levels. And
right.
It would seem you're constantly trying to empty the tunnels of water, whereas in Vegas and Phoenix, you got to go down a couple thousand feet to get a decent well or to get groundwater.
Well, and not only that, like Phoenix, Vegas is one of the what you would call new cities in the United States. Much of the city is built on a straight, square grid system, so it becomes very easy to put in the tunnels in a straight line, because that straight line is going to follow the streets above it.
And the other thing occurred to me is, unlike the older cities like Paris, for example, they've been developing their underground for 100 years or more. In Vegas, none of that exists. They don't have subways, so you don't get any intersections underground. So it makes it easy, it seems.
That's right. One of the potential challenges I know we have here in the desert Southwest in Phoenix, and might exist in Vegas, is the spontaneous sinkholes.
Oh yeah, okay.
They're big in the Southeast. They're due to water. We have some sinkhole problems here in the desert Southwest as well, and I don't know if they have them up in Las Vegas, but I would assume that the geologists are taking care of that and helping to mitigate that risk.
Certainly. If we can throw up a picture, guys, we actually have an image of the map in Vegas. It's called Vegas. And you can see it's color-coded. Anything tan is in existence, and then the red and green are either the planned or under construction. But you can see there's a massive underground grid that is proposed, and if it has funding, will most likely continue. You know, people that have used this underground network swear by it during Comdex last year. I remember there were a bunch of YouTube influencers that used the underground tunnels to get around the convention center, and it was much easier than trying to fight traffic above ground.
Yeah, the people that have used it have been unilaterally impressed with it, even though the underground tunnels are still using driver-led electric vehicles going no more than about 40 miles an hour, when the theory and the dream was to use driverless autonomous electric vehicles going as much as 150 miles an hour.
So they were saying that the Proof Rock 1 tunneling machine, which is another image, guys, if you can throw up boring, you can see how big this beast is standing next to a car. It has completed the Westgate 2 tunnel, marking the fourth tunnel constructed in the city of Las Vegas. This thing reminds me of a gigantic earthworm, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of like Dune. Did you ever see, there's a movie and
I
a book
did.
written.
I did. I've read the book. And Frank Herbert is a wonderful author. Love the book, and then have seen the first movie. I know that there's a second one out, and have just not gone to see it yet.
So maybe these worms were made as an inspiration. I know Elon reads quite a bit too. So Proof Rock 1, it is the seventh tunnel built, while the other three were completed using Godot, which is another big worm, or tunnel maker, I guess, or whatever they call these. The latest iteration of the Proof Rock machine, the Proof Rock 2, apparently. There's another one. So the post also included this picture of the Proof Rock 1 emerging from the construction site beside the Westgate Hotel, which you can see in the background there.
I think the one of the keys for the Boring Company is going to be to get the Proof Rock 1 and Proof Rock 2 working at 100% of their expected speed. The expected speed on these in an ideal situation is about 1/10 of walking speed, which actually equates to nearly 7 miles in a 24-hour period. The reality has been that these guys have been doing anywhere from a half a mile to a mile a week instead of 7 miles a day.
That was it then, huh? What are the reasons that, did they give any?
I did not see any reasons that they gave for these being so slow as compared to what the engineering spec had been. I think a lot of it has been that, again, they're trying to do something that really has only been done in bedrock in mining operations. And you're not necessarily going through bedrock when you're going through a desert floor 40 feet below street level. So I think they've had to take extreme safety measures to make sure that the tunnel doesn't collapse behind them.
Interesting. All right, a few more comments coming in. TikTok, wage war, I wage war, okay? What's your opinion on range extender? Related to?
Probably related to the Cybertruck. I don't know of any other Tesla range extender that they have, but the range extender is an apparatus that takes about a third of the bed of the Cybertruck, and it's like an add-on battery pack.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it almost looks like a toolbox that lays in the bottom of the bed instead of mounted on the side.
Yes.
It almost looks like it's an add-on step-on. You can still put stuff on top of it or in front of it. So you still have function of the bed. You just take a little bit of space out of it.
Sure. Well, do we like it?
Personally, yeah. Because, I mean, in the diesel trucks, I know my buddy has a dually. He has a Dodge dually, and he has a fuel tank that sits like a tool truck in the bed of his, but it takes up more space than this extender would on the Cybertruck.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I would do that myself. I find I have a car that has 300 miles of range. I'm seldom, if ever, below about half battery on my range.
And why carry all that extra weight and wear your tires
Yeah, it's not only the fact that you're going through more charge because you're carrying that extra weight. What about the tires? What about the other wear and tear on the car because it's heavier? And for me, I like to haul stuff occasionally. If I have a pickup truck, I want the space in my bed to be able to haul, and that's going to take 2 feet of space out of my bed. I don't like that.
Well, there you have some of our opinions, I wage war. YouTube, Marak Ben, lots of emojis there.
Thank
some
you.
of which I recognize, some are new to me. It looks like a television in there too, to me at least. Camera.
Neil's on YouTube. If you can scroll that back up, we have missed one on Neil's. It says this will likely be made obsolete by much better batteries regarding the inductive charging. If density were twice that of today, and Neil's, we've even talked within the last couple of weeks about battery technology that'll be 2 to 3 times at least as dense, energy dense as today's batteries. Niels continues on YouTube to say it's a good advertisement for the Tesla Model 3. Yes, the boring tunnel is.
All right, and then we've got TikTok Smuggler down below. I can't quite read that. Can you see that?
No, well, if you guys can scroll that one up a little bit. Smuggler sent us a heart gift.
Oh, well, thank you, Smuggler. And then TikTok, Peter Ruchti says, what's your guess on the next Model S refresh? I bought a Model 3 new, but I have a lot of issues. You know, the thing that we can't discount is that at some point in time, Tesla may just simply end the Model S production. Although it's been a highly successful platform for them, how many times can you revive? I was just going to say, how many times can you change the body style and keep the name? The ICE manufacturers in the last century did that for decades.
Well, they have.
Yeah.
You know, but you're right. Without a significant body style change, a more significant update than we've seen on any of the refreshes to date on any model, I'm starting to wonder whether or not Tesla is going to say, yeah, the Model S was really nice, but we're going to go for volume. We're going to go to, again, be the new Ford in the auto industry, not the next Mercedes.
You know, what comes to mind is these refreshes and style changes. Do you remember the Thunderbird came out in the 50s?
Oh, my gosh, yes.
It was a neat little sports car, 2-seater basically. Yeah. And my God, that thing metamorphized or morphed into a gigantic beast by the time it got into the 70s. The Mustang, the same thing. You remember the early Mustangs? They were, cute little, close to 2-seaters, but not quite. And then the EPA got involved and they became bloated with safety bumpers and all kinds of gadgets around to protect the drivers. And before you know it, they were bloated, I guess is the best word.
Yeah, bloated is definitely a good word for that. And, I remember seeing the Mustang 2. Ugly car, I tell you.
It's amazing how they'll start with a really cool style and then just get, like you said, uglier and uglier. And the manufacturers don't recognize that.
No, and Ford. I feel like Ford saved the Mustang in 2004 when they came out with their complete redesign, retro look, and it looked like a whole different car.
Yeah. You know, the Dodge Chargers is a good example of that. The 64 Dodge Charger was pretty homely and ugly up through 67. And suddenly they went to the Coke bottle design in 68 and 69. You know, the Dukes of Hazzard car, basically. Yeah. And but they went the opposite direction. But Dodge brothers have always been a bit more progressive than I think the old true and tried auto manufacturers.
Yes, for
sure.
They
lost their vision at times,
Yes, for sure.
Facebook, Mark Sala says, where is the sun, guys? Well, in Phoenix, it's always present, but it's outside our studio. And we're sitting here with lots of sunlight with cool studio lights. But that's not the reason we wear sunglasses. There is another compelling reason that has not yet been revealed. And the mystique and the curiosity continues to build until we do a video where we will do a reveal. And it is coming. But there's still too much curiosity to lose, all of that engagement about our sunglasses.
Oh, yes. There's all kinds of curiosity. And we have not only sunglasses, but we have sunglass cases, right, Richard?
That's right. Now, we can't sate your curiosity by giving you the answer just yet, but what we can do is kind of hold you over. We have these sunglass cases. They sell for $79.99 with 10% off using code Richard or Aaron. But these are made out of genuine leather. These are laser engraved with the Gruber Motor Company name, and if you have a Roadster or any other car, you want your VIN engraved on it, we can do that too.
Perfect. Thank you for that sales pitch.
Thank you.
And we will do a reveal soon, guys. Now, here's a question I love. TikTok, Wilson or Alana says, what advice would you give to someone who is obviously going bald, but is holding on to his 2 last bits of hair. Well, having gone through that myself, I have an answer for you. It started with the receding hairline. You know, the thing where here you suddenly have patches of skin that go back further and further. But the worst one was I had this shiny spot on the back of my head. So there was hair all around my head and then this bald spot in the middle of my head. And I looked at myself in the mirror at times and I would say, man, I look old, you know? It took me 2 years to get enough courage to shave all that crap off. And once I did, I felt completely liberated. Every morning now, I run the shaver over my head. And you know what? I'm saving money on conditioner. I'm saving money on shampoo. I'm saving gobs of money on barbers. You know what those guys cost nowadays? Well, you know, because you guys get haircuts, right?
I do.
It used to be you could get a haircut for $2 or $3. What is it, like $20-$30 now?
Good.
Something like that, $20-$30 now. I get around that cost a completely different method. I just don't cut my hair.
Do we have a camera on you?
We don't, not at the moment.
Darn. Okay.
At least you
Unfortunately.
guys don't have to pay upwards of 60 to 100, because that is my issue.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's the ladies' issue.
By the way, those of you
Yes.
interested in what Richard looks like, he looks like a biblical character. But getting back to this thing about hair, I would suggest just shave that stuff off and enjoy the freedom that you end up with by not having any. Niels, but today, where the shape of cars are mostly dictated by wind tunnels, how can they change much? They will probably all move towards an optimal shape, which will stay forever, more or less. You know, good point. I think that the things we're beginning to see that are changing, they're playing with illumination now. You know, like the Lucid, that cool light bar. When that car comes up behind you, you know that there's something unusual there.
Right.
Instead of the stacked, you know, 2 headlights on one side, 2 on the other, high beams, low beams, that type of thing. But I think they're going to play a lot more with the accessories on the car. But you're right, the wind tunnels are pretty much going to dictate styling. And we all know that those 50s cars, if they had had wind tunnels back then, they would have realized they've got bricks going through the air. The mileage is horrible. In fact, when some of the guys used to build out some of the 50s Chevys, the Tri-5s they call them, and soup them up and then increase the top speed, sometimes they would blow out windshields because they couldn't handle the amount of air pressure.
I had a good friend growing up that had one of those 50s Chevys as well, and I could totally see that happen.
Yeah. TikTok, Peter Ruchti says, tips on snow tires, Tesla's snow tire package, or go to the standard tire place. You know, we get asked this question often, and there is a whole science to tires and traction and thread and weight and, efficiencies. I'm not going to try to be an expert on that.
Yeah, unfortunately, in Phoenix, if you get more than 1/4 of an inch of snow, the city shuts down.
It does, yes.
And so, since we're here in Phoenix, we're going to be kind of limited on what we can say. I would think that the weight of the battery in the car that makes the car have a lower center of gravity and travel heavier than most other cars is going to help give it traction. The other thing is that most electric cars are all-wheel drive, and that's also going to help with traction as well. Beyond that, I'm not sure I have a lot of tips on what kind of snow tires would be better. If it would be just a standard, I would think a good standard tire place here in Phoenix. I like Discount Tire, and they would be able to help give advice on what they would recommend.
I heard racing slicks are great for snow. There you go. For the record, that was a joke. Nobody do that, please.
So, with tires, we're in the information age. You can go out and collect hundreds of opinions and then find a common denominator. The forums are great for that, too.
Yes.
You know, there are always guys on the forums that do a deep dive into various technologies, and I'm sure that those kinds of tire guys are out there somewhere, and they'll give you all the pros and cons, probably way more than you can handle or are interested in, but that'd be a great repository for information in my mind.
That definitely would be.
All
looks like Maroc Ben on YouTube has once again sent us a bunch of different icons, and thank you, Maroc.
By the way, the image behind us, always AI generated. This one is ChatGPT 4. I asked for a AI themed news studio, and look at that. It got AI correct. You can't do this with Midjourney. It would give you a couple of jumbled characters in there that was supposed to mean AI, but that is a AI studio. Oh, it even has news on there. Right above my head.
Yeah.
Spelled it correctly. So here's a good one. Ford sets new EV sales record in November. You know, we have the naysayers now that are saying, oh, the EV adoption rates are declining. It's the end of EVs is the most, persistent one that you hear. And here's Ford coming along. They broke news Friday that the F-150 Lightning sales broke a monthly sales record last month. The F-150 sales more than doubled 113% in November, with 4,300 units sold. With that level of growth, Ford's Lightning is now the best-selling electric pickup truck through November, edging out the Rivian R1T. We're going to have to see how the Cybertruck plays into these statistics.
Definitely will.
But so they sold more Lightning models last month than it did the entire third quarter, and which were only 3,500 units sold in the entire quarter. It doesn't say what the reason for this was, although they did give us kind of a hint here. They said there was a 6-week shutdown to expand the Rouge Electric Vehicle Center. And Lightning deliveries were also limited in July and August. But the fact that they would snap back and take the top record for EV trucks sold is pretty impressive, I think, for a newcomer like Ford.
I think so as well. I realize that this pales to comparison of the, 40 or so thousand vehicles that Ford sells every month of their F-150 pickup truck, but it's a not insignificant percentage of overall truck sales now, and we're talking about some real numbers here. Sure, they were hoping that they were going to have 150,000 cars. Ford F-150 Lightnings running off the mill per year in 2024, and that's probably not going to happen yet. But 4,300, 4,400 pickups sold in 1 month, that equates to a little over 50,000 in a single year. That's a pretty impressive number.
They do give us some additional statistics. They said overall, Ford sold 8,900 EVs in November, which was a 43% increase year to year, a new record for Ford. That included the Mustang Mach-E, which sales were up 21.3% with 4,200 units sold.
Yeah, that impressive numbers, really. Outside of those top sellers, you'll find that an automaker will run with a model if they get 15 to 25,000 units sold per year, they'll run with a model for years and years and years. The Chevy Camaro is one I think of that ran in the 25 to 50,000 units per year sold for years. And it was only within the last year or two that Chevrolet said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and retire that. But I think they're going to be coming back with an EV version of it within a couple of years now.
Jesse, we got another image we want to pop up. This one is called Truck Comparison. And this was actually an image that was either copied by Farzad Mesbahi or created by him. And he's a great influencer, by the way, definitely has his pulse on the EV industry, what's going on. But what was remarkable about this chart that he posted on Twitter was it's called EV Truck Showdown. And he's showing 3 pickup trucks available in the market: the Cybertruck, Tesla, Ford F-150 Lightning, and the Rivian R1T. What amazed me looking down these columns of specifications was the similarity between all 3 of them. I think the biggest change that I saw was the payload, which is 2,500 pounds for the Cybertruck versus 1,800 for Ford and 1,700 for the Rivian. So as the Cybertruck begins to gain market dominance, and that's an assumption, by the way, folks, but I think it's a safe one, it'll be interesting to see how these 3 front runners begin to shake out and begin to compete with each other.
I definitely think so as well. I'm if you take a look, this is the mid-tier Cybertruck. The lower tier Cybertruck is about 20,000 less. The lower tier Ford F-150 is somewhere around 20,000 less. Rivian now does not have a cheaper alternative, but Chevrolet and Dodge will be coming out with alternatives that are a little bit lower end as well.
I'm smiling because Niels is cracking me up here with his comment. He says, my hairstyle is called 7mm, and I do it myself at zero cost. Strangely, the hair is growing better after I cut down sugar and starch. No Miracle Grow used. I don't know whether my hair is growing better or worse because I haven't seen my hair literally in 10 years or something like that. But I am suspicious that if I do let it grow out, it's going to be silver gray because there are other parts of my body that are beginning to manifest silver hair.
Oh, sure.
Without getting into detail. These guys are chuckling. YouTube, R.C. Robinson's son says over 1 million EVs sold in the U.S. for the first time in 2023. That's a great statistic.
Yes, that is a great statistic, and it's it leads me to like we said at the beginning of our article and in the introduction. What are you guys talking about? There's no EV demand.
Right.
EV demand does continue to grow, just not as quickly as people thought it would.
So we have another picture to throw up here, guys, and this one is called CT at GMC, and this one surprised the heck out of me. What we're seeing here in a minute is a Cybertruck parked in front of Gruber Motor Company. I recognize our building.
Yep.
And in the middle of the night, it looks like. And I thought, when did that happen? How did I miss that, right? No one, no one saw it. No one. Well, it turns out that Tesla in the month of November had certain employees that were going around the United States just simply driving the Cybertrucks around. If you think about it, that's a wonderful PR effort, right?
Sure.
Low key, and going to charging stations and the like. And it turns out that the caption that I received with this image on Facebook, by the way, said something like, sorry, I missed you guys. It was a whirlwind tour through the U.S. with the Cybertruck, but I wanted to see your service center. And I did not know this individual. It turns out that a few more, a little bit more correspondence later, this was a Tesla employee from Europe. And I won't mention names because anonymity is important to her. But the job was, and my guidance counselor didn't tell me about this job in high school, driving a Cybertruck around the U.S., probably because it wasn't around yet. But the job was to simply take it out, expose it to the elements, expose it to the shopping centers, to the charging stations. And I commented and I said, wow, you must have been swamped wherever you went, because the new owners now, the feedback is they can't go to the grocery store without, getting a bunch of conversation going about their vehicle. She said exactly that. It was very difficult, no time to even go to the bathroom. It was one of the greatest experiences. She's a Tesla employee. And anyway, invited me when in Europe to hook up there. So great opportunity. It would have been, if one of us were there, to have a Cybertruck inside the building with 50 Tesla Roadsters, some of the early relatives of this Tesla, and having a Cybertruck in our service center.
That would have been great. I'm very sad that we missed that particular one.
Does this mean that Gruber Motor needs a night shift in case this happens again?
If this were to ever happen again, we would put a night shift in place, yes. Of course, by the time that happens, the mystique around the Cybertruck is probably no longer there, and a lot of people are driving them. Which, by the way, brings me to my next topic. We do a series of videos on our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, called Pete Rants. And these started off with topics where I found irritating, and just out of fun, we fed some of this into AI. I created some scripts and we posted these things, and people seemed to like them. So one of them was the Tesla Cybertruck video, where we talked about the well, there are two of them actually. There's the construction one,
right?
And what's the most? The Cybertruck spanking the Porsche 911.
Oh yes.
And by the way, we couldn't use Porsche 911. It's a trademark term. YouTube had some issue with that and slapped our hands. So we had to work around that issue. So we said like German sports car or something like that, right? All right. So what we decided to do was create a short video on the impact that the Cybertruck racing a Porsche 911, which is of course one of the quintessential sports cars, especially the German sports cars, well known, even into the last century, and racing it off the line. And when you first saw the video that Tesla released, you saw the Cybertruck edging or pulling away from the 911. You said, okay, there's another one of those videos where the sports car loses to one of the Tesla grocery getters, or in this case, a pickup truck.
Yeah.
And then what was really mind-blowing was at the end you saw that the Cybertruck wasn't only beating this quintessential German sports car, iconic sports car, but it was towing a car just like it and beat it on top of that. So we decided to do a video with that. And one of the phrases in there was, this thing is so angular and sharp that you could probably grate cheese with it or sharpen knives. So the Tesla employee said, well, grating Bavarian cheese was exactly what I wanted to test with you and your team, Pete. But unfortunately, nobody was home when I arrived. But those of you interested, we've got some cool videos out there. Give us your comments. Let us know what you'd like to see more of. And if it continues to gather momentum, we'll do more of them.
We have a comment from last week's video that I wanted to add on. If you remember, last week we were talking about Tesla being in conflict with, I believe it was Sweden.
It was.
And that was the fact was that the one of the auto unions or one of the unions wanted Tesla employees to be able to organize. They had asked other unions to chime in, and all of a sudden the postal union and the transportation workers union wouldn't give Tesla license plates. The mail was stopped to Tesla.
It was a show of solidarity.
It was a show of solidarity, but actually was preventing Tesla from being able to do day-to-day business.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, they couldn't sell cars because the owners couldn't get license plates. Then they were holding up shipments to the service center, parts or whatever.
Yeah.
And
so Krishy has a comment for this on YouTube with an update, and I appreciate you doing that. She says, just dropped in, so this might be off topic and or already mentioned. It had not yet been today. But there is a pause on the decision to let Tesla even go get their license plates on their own.
Really? Okay, so the battle still rages, it sounds like. And the ultimate irony was, and I don't remember the details, but one of the individuals in Sweden that was orchestrating some of this kind of retaliatory effort against Tesla owns a Tesla. His wife bought one, his family, right?
Yes.
And once that was revealed, suddenly, there was somebody that was embarrassed there in Sweden.
Oh, definitely. Well, and the Model Y is the most popular car in Sweden right now.
Yes, yeah. And in all fairness, there was a podcast hosted by Farzad Misbahi again, and he had 3 panelists on his show, and 2 of them were from Sweden. And we also had someone chime in here. We tend to assume that the unions anywhere are as parasitic as they are in the United States.
Right.
Not looking out for the public good, and it turns out in Sweden that is not quite the case. They do serve a useful purpose.
Yes.
So,
and it leads me to think that there's more to this picture than what the press is reporting.
Yeah, it's certainly a high degree of sensationalism involved in topics like this. But so the rest of the story will emerge. The real question is, will Tesla violate their fundamental culture by allowing some unionization in any of their facilities? And I guess there's 7 service centers in Sweden that are affected. We do not think, however, that Elon will ever put a manufacturing facility in Sweden with this kind of dust up.
Yeah, we don't think so, and it does seem that Tesla so far has been very anti-Sweden when it comes to the unions, anyway.
Niels is saying the Cybertruck will most certainly make a profit, and the others will make a big loss. So that's one big difference. But the disappointing Cybertruck range and price will likely mean a lot of cancellations. Yeah, the pricing has been bouncing around a bit based on what was originally projected, and that's probably what generated a lot of the reservation orders.
I think so. When they announced that $39,000 Cybertruck, everybody said, "Oh my gosh, I can get a nice electric vehicle for less than the cost of a pickup."
Right.
And now we've seen that that's not necessarily the case.
Right. All right, moving along here. Just realized we just covered another topic here.
While you're looking through the topics here, there's one that I wanted to bring up because I know we don't have a lot of time left.
Mm-hmm.
There's another lithium deposit that's been found here in the United States. Now, in the last 2 months, we've talked about the very large lithium deposit that was found in Nevada that has high-grade ore. Mining will be beginning on that one probably within the next 12 months. Exxon is going to be also extracting lithium brine out of the southeast, and they felt that there was enough lithium there to potentially put together 40 million auto batteries, that which would have made it larger than the Nevada deposit by just a little bit. This next one, Governor Gavin Newsom from California, of all people, is the one that announced it, and he said that there's more lithium to be found in lithium brine in the Salton Sea in Southern California than anywhere else in the world. The U.S. Department of Energy recently revealed lab results of an analysis that was conducted by the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories. This analysis concluded that there is enough lithium in hot brine underneath the surface of the Salton Sea to power or build 375 million automobile batteries.
Wow. If we stay with that technology,
with the technology. So that is again, it's potentially the largest single lithium deposit in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And for comparison, it's almost 10 times larger than the massive lithium deposit that was found and has been making the news in northern Nevada just earlier this year.
Amazing. And you mentioned hot brine. Is this where they're mining down 1,000 or 2,000 feet to extract brine?
That's right.
Okay.
They would mine down the couple thousand feet. And if you remember, the Salton Sea is a man-made body of water.
I did not know that.
In the very early 1900s, the railroads were trying to, as the railroads were building along between the Colorado River and headed north and south on the western side of California, there was a flooding, and I believe it was 1902. A levee was breached, washed out, and by the time the authorities were able to get the levee rebuilt, the Salton Sea had been formed. It was almost a year later, and the Salton Sea became a wonderful place in the 50s and 60s for stars to go and have recreation, stuff like that. And then in the 80s, as the sea became more and more salty because it is not naturally fed by any water, it's continuing to become more and more salty. It became kind of an environmental disaster.
Interesting. Okay. So brine. Instagram, Alex, the guy who loves birds. All one word, by the way. That is an excellent name. He says, yo. Well, thank you for joining us. Neil says, Musk has said that if the majority of employees really want a union, then he will allow it. Okay.
The question there, at least from what we heard last week, was that the minority of employees that really wanted a union were fired.
Okay, all right. And will you take a pay cut to join the union? I think that's going to be the other question.
That will be one of his other questions.
Can't imagine stock options would be part of that package. Why?
Yeah.
Let the union take care of them. So a couple of other comments that came in regarding this video that we did about the Cybertruck spanking the Porsche 911. These are pretty good comments. He says, I don't think anyone would ever think a gas truck is more powerful than an electric one. Cybertruck is a statement. Okay. Now here's Richard chiming in, Richard Flintke. By the way, Richard, we need to hear from you. I found a piece of equipment that was created by Jack Ricard that came in with some scrap equipment that we got out of a data center. And I want to show you the picture if you chime in and tell us what this thing is and how we can use it. But he says, Spanx? Such a kind way to say they whooped ass. Can I say that, by the way, on the air, guys, or did I just get in trouble?
You just did.
I did. All right. I retract that last comment. Steven says, and when you hit the clubs on Friday nights, guaranteed the 911 gets the chicks. And finally, Cybertruck is fine until the first corner. After that, it won't even see the taillights of a Porsche 911. What we're talking about here is canyon carving. You know, sports cars, low to the ground. It's nimble. It can certainly do a better job at handling corners than a big 6,000-pound Cybertruck sitting up 17 inches in the air.
I don't think that's actually accurate with the steer-by-wire. I think it is comparable to a sports car, actually.
Well, there's the next video then. We're going to have to do some canyon carving and get somebody willing to bring out their iconic sports car and go up
Gotta
the back
test
of
it
Mount
out.
Mingus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You've got Mingus Mountain. We've got Salt River Canyon, east of Phoenix. A couple of great areas to do canyon carving.
Oh, even going up to Payson.
Oh,
We used
yeah.
to do that road going up to Gerardo's Italian restaurant up there. Great spot. All right. So let's see what else we have here. These comments. The Cyber Beast is a heck of a vehicle, he says, but I wouldn't dismiss the 911 based on a cherry-picked competition by Tesla. Albeit quite impressive, have them both take a hot lap around the ring, and the 911 will smoke the Cybertruck by a minute. We're talking about I can't say it.
The Nuremberg.
Nürburgring. Yeah. And I should be able to say that better than you guys. He says, nonetheless, there are quite a few things about the Cybertruck they, I hope, make it into other vehicles, such as 48-volt low-voltage system, steer-by-wire, and frameless design. Good point.
Yeah, definitely good points there. I guess I would just say, you know, that I'm not sure if anybody who's been in one of these sports cars has felt the acceleration that you get in an EV from 75 to 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Right?
You know, and that's granted, that's going to be the sweet spot for a lot of the sports cars and the torque that they have. I would say that an EV still out torques and out accelerates a sports car after you get to those high speeds.
Good point. You know, on the freeway, you're doing 75 miles an hour and you decide you want to pass.
Mm-hmm.
You floor an EV, and it's a world of difference between that and an ICE vehicle. Unless, of course, you have one of those Dodge Demons or, you know.
Well, I mean, but even still. And Jesse had a great comment about the Cybertruck as well. If he was saying pre-show, do you remember that one, Jesse?
Wait, in regard to what about the Cybertruck?
Well, it was a Cybertruck versus, I think you had said,
against the Porsche.
Taycan.
Yeah, the Porsche Taycan is their flagship EV. It's $295,000 or $293,000. So it's more than triple the cost, and the Cybertruck is almost double the weight of this car, and they have the same 0 to 60 speed.
Yeah, that is amazing.
2.6 seconds. So they're
Crazy.
the flagship EV that's supposed to be like on par with the Plaid, which, you know, is still much slower than the Plaid. The Porsche EV gets destroyed, essentially.
I would love to have been in the boardroom when Tesla was talking about how do we make the biggest splash with the Cybertruck in one of these 0 to 60 runs or the quarter-mile runs. They must have been talking about various brands. And somewhere along the line, maybe the topic came off. Who do we want to embarrass the most? You know, granted, you were saying that this was not a 911 turbo. This was a stock 911. With what was the 0 to 60 on that? Like 5 seconds?
No, it could be. If it is, we don't know for sure what it was, but if it was just a regular 911, I think the 0 to 60 is like 3.5.
Okay, so much higher than the stock
Than the 2.6
Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I wonder how many people are going to be taking Cybertrucks to the drag strip and then, to make it even more impressive, hauling something behind them.
Yes.
Okay, guys, we got to wrap up here in about 30 seconds so we can get the other show set up.
Perfect. Niels is saying the minimum Cybertruck ground clearance is 8 inches and max is 17, okay?
Yep.
For those of you that want to stay with us here, in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to switch over to the Tesla Roadster podcast. And here we've got some show and tell items. Again, Roadsters are aging. They're beginning to manifest signs of wear and tear that weren't anticipated when they were designed. And today we're going to dive into something that doesn't get looked at very much, which is the transaxle. We've opened one up. We have a customer that has a problem, and what we're finding indicates that there is definitely some maintenance required on those transaxles as these cars age. So we're going to have our master mechanic here, Mike Manning. He's going to show you a gigantic box full of gears, and it should be a good session for those of you that like mechanical stuff. So stay with us. In about 5 minutes, we'll reemerge as a Tesla Roadster podcast.
See you in 5.